Ahoy BC, welcome to the Personal Oasis. This is the Blind Island, and welcome back to our segment Top 100 to 100. I am counting down my favorite 100 albums, and today we are going through 95 to 91. Again, to just reiterate, this is favorite, not necessarily what I think are the best or most artistic, just albums that I find myself constantly returning to on a regular basis. Now, let's get into the list. At number 95, we have Joe Farrell, Moon Germs. I'll never forget what I was doing when this was recommended to me. I had thrown on his other album, Outback, at the record store that I work at. And a buddy of mine said, if you ever see his album Moon Germs come through, you need to listen to that because it is a very intriguing listen. It is a perfect merger of freewheeling jazz with fusion and funk elements. And then when I saw this come through and the people who were associated with it, Herbie Hancock, Stan Clark, Jack DeJohnette, I knew that I needed to just buy it, not even sample it first. And it is an album that I listen to on a regular basis. One of my favorite jazz albums. So great. If you're a fan of fusion and you're a fan of funk and you're a fan of just jazz in general, pick this record up. At number 94, we have Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders, The Game of Love. This is a record that really reminds me of my wife. She and I, we love listening to this album. The title track is one that we constantly find ourselves dancing to or humming, and it brings up a lot of great memories. And there are some really great tracks going along with that, like She's Got the Power, Cops and Robbers, and Someday, Girl Can't Help It. I love this album, and it's just one that is attached with a lot of really great memories. Next, at number 93, we have The Cars, Heartbeat City. Now, The Cars discography to me is one of those rare discographies where there's very little within it that is weak. You could make the argument that Shake It Up and Panorama aren't that great, but they still have their good moments. However, Heartbeat City is everything that is wonderful about pop rock in the 80s. Here She Comes, Magic, Drive. This album is loaded with hits. And the Cars were just a band. Rick Ocasek was a guy that knew how to write a pop rock song. And this is the epitome of 80s pop rock. I love this record, and I love the Cars. So you should definitely, if you haven't listened to it in a while, go back and re-listen to it because it's a wonderful album. And at number 92, we have the Monkees' Head. I think that this record has some big cojones. This was a record made by a band that no one took seriously. Known as the Prefab Four, they were a prefabricated band made for a TV show that wound up finding an identity along the way. They wanted to play their own music, their own instruments, and they decided to get out of the shadow of their television show. They were going to make a movie and completely shatter the image that had been created for the Monkees in the 60s. It was directed by Jack Nicholson, and they basically took a ton of different soundscapes and different sound effects, placed it in the middle of everything, and this is a wonderful introduction to anyone who wants to get into avant-garde rock and pop, because it's still so accessible and the tunes on here are still so great. While technically they only have about 7 fully fleshed out songs, I can't get enough of it. It is one of those albums that, bands like the Beatles, they could afford to do crazy things. Bands like the Rolling Stones, they could have their strange out there moment. But the Monkees were locked in. They were a product, and people wanted to buy that particular product. But they didn't want to be that product anymore, so they broke free. It was a huge flop. Everyone really didn't like it at the time, but it has grown in estimation ever since, and it is one of those records that I look to and I respect the hell out of. And I highly recommend that you give this album a listen if you haven't listened to it before, or if it's been a while, listen to it with fresh ears and marvel at how crazy it is. And at number 91, we have The Comet is Coming, Trust in the Lifeforce of the Universe. This is what fusion looks like in the 21st century. It is an adventurous, wonderful record that just came out on the Resurgent Impulse label in 2019. And it has easily been one that I return to time and time again. It has elements of hip-hop, it has elements of rock, it has elements of electronica, and it merges them all into this wonderful, coalesced image that I can't take my eyes off of. Much like the obelisk that's on here, it kind of reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's unlike anything I've ever really heard here in the 21st century. And again, while there are other groups doing some crazy, cool experiments like Flying Lotus, experimenting in the realm of hip-hop, these guys are doing it on the jazz side. And I love it, I think it's great, and I think that everyone should give these guys a chance. And Shabaka Hutcherson, the saxophone player for these guys, he's just doing some crazy stuff all over the place. Check out this other group, Sons of Comet. Your Queen is a Reptile. It is one that also just barely made it off the list, but it is definitely worth a shout out. So that was my latest installment in my top 100. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of the wonderful comments that have been left thus far. I'm going to give a shout out to Grandma's Handbag, Dean. He's a great guy, always encouraging my videos. And also Liz. She goes by L.E. She always leaves really encouraging comments on my content, and I want to thank you both so much for being great subscribers. Go ahead, I will include a link to their channels in the description below. Subscribe to them, and I want to wish you guys a great day on your own personal oasis. Cheers.